Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Shadow Demon. So Shadow Demon is a 5-position support who's fairly unique. He doesn't really have any of those traditional spells that most supports have, like stuns or hexes, like a Lion or maybe a CM. He doesn't have like these big team fight ultimates or anything like that. What he does is a little bit of everything. He has a stun, but it's not really a traditional stun. It's something that is more of a setup for other stuns, like Mirana Arrow or other abilities that are difficult to connect with. He's also great with or against illusion heroes or heroes that buy radiance. He has a pretty reliable save, he has a decent scouting ability, and he can also kind of function as a mini Doom, just kind of isolating one hero, putting a bunch of debuffs on them, and isolating them and killing them, just amplifying the damage on that hero. But as you can probably already tell with how I'm talking about this hero does a lot of different things, but overall, the best way to think about him is as a pure, true support. And what I mean is that he doesn't really do much on his own. He doesn't have that big teamfight ultimate. He doesn't really clear waves very much. He doesn't really just stun people on his own. He really is all about amping up what his allies need to do or want to do with damage or other things. And he's also about filling in those little holes in the team because he can do a little bit of everything. So, like I said, do you need a save? Do you have no other saves? He's great at that. Do you need some kind of offensive purge to isolate targets? He's great at that. Do you need some kind of scouting ability because you have no vision on the team really? You don't have like a Night Stalker or anything like that? He can be a good scouting hero to just pick people off or to initiate team fights, that kind of stuff. He can do a little bit of everything in any different lineup depending on what you need. And so that's kind of the core of Shadow Demon, filling in the gaps and also being a great pure support to just amp up what your allies already want to do. But before we can understand how to play Shadow Demon, we have to take a look at his abilities. Now that we understand Shadow Demon in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to fit in all the little holes of any team and be very versatile and a very good pure support. So first we're going to take a look at Disruption. So Disruption can be used on allies or enemies, and let's just use it on this axe first. And you can see how this is a pretty good save. It's like Odie's Astral Imprisonment, because then they become invulnerable, so if they're getting initiated on, you can save them that way. Then they can pop BKB or do whatever else that they need to do to, man fight or get out, that kind of thing, blink, whatever it is. And then you can see it spawns 2 illusions of that ally there as well, which are, used like normal illusions, like a Manta illusion or something like that. And the same can be true for the enemy. So if you want to initiate, you want to, it's like a pseudo stun kind of thing. Obviously they're not stunned, you can't do damage to them while they're in the disruption, but you can use it to initiate, and then your teammates can catch up. It can be good for setting up stuns like Mirana Arrow, like I said before, and that kind of thing, and then you also spawn illusions of them. So this can be really good to be used on allies if you have like a Luna, or if the enemy has a Luna, because, they're a really good Manta hero or a Medusa, and so you can just get those illusions of them for free, or if there's even an illusion-based hero like a Naga or like a PL, you can use this to get those heroes as well. Or if there is a hero that buys Radiance, for instance, then you can use this ability to get that Radiance on those illusions, which is really good in fights for canceling blinks, just doing a little bit of damage in fights overall, that kind of stuff. So this can be pretty versatile in that way, even though it's a pretty straightforward spell, because you want to know, okay, am I using this offensively? Am I using this on a specific hero? Or am I just saving it for defensive purposes, for a save, for counter initiation, all that kind of stuff? And it's very vital to understand how you're going to be using it in each game, in each situation and scenario, because it is versatile in that way. And this is actually one of the main things you're going to be using to farm, because he doesn't have a great farming spell. So using this on a Luna or Medusa or something else like that is honestly one of the best ways you can farm on the hero, by pushing waves like that with those illusions. So that's Disruption. Next, we're going to move on to Disseminate. This is a pretty straightforward spell. Let's just see how much damage I do here to this axe. You can see it kind of ticking down. But then if I put Disseminate on the hero, he takes more damage overall just from my right clicks and all damage incoming. But then you also see this kind of cloud here, and any other enemy in that AoE is taking a little bit of damage as well based on the damage I'm dealing to this axe. And so this can be really, really good in some kind of like AoE team fight. If you have like a vacuum from a Darkseer, you're just going to be amping up the damage being dealt in that AoE. But you can also just use it to amp up the damage on a hero that you're picking off by itself. Like, it doesn't need to be AoE based, but it can be. It's just that added bonus. But really, it's just like I'm clicking it on this target or isolating the target, we want to kill this target, he's just taking way more damage. So it's really good just for that alone. And that's kind of the spell in itself. It's pretty straightforward for that, just amping up the damage in general. And next we're going to take a look at Shadow Poison. So this is the main damage dealing ability, the main offensive ability, the harass ability, the laning stage ability that's going to really annoy the enemy. And so what you do is you can see there's an AoE there, and then you kind of press it in a direction and you send out this poison. It has a travel time. And so then you can see when I hit this axe, he gets a stack on him, and it lasts for a certain amount of time, but then it refreshes when I put a new stack on him. So basically when the axe gets a certain amount of stacks on him, then he obviously wants to try to run away and not allow you to get more stacks, because the more stacks you get on them, the more damage you're going to be doing. Not only do you do damage just initially when it hits them with the poison, which is good for canceling blinks and other things like that, or just harassing the enemy. The other thing is the more stacks you get on them, the more damage you do when it does run out, because it's like burst damage at the end when it runs out. So when this runs out, it will do burst damage, which you can also press this ability, which is Shadow Poison Release, to do the damage whenever you want to. So you can kind of let it go if you want to get more stacks on, or if you're like, okay, well, the enemy has a ton of stacks, it's probably going to die, I'm going to just press D, release the Shadow Poison, and kill him so he doesn't get off more spells or whatever it is, or heal or something like that. You can do that as well. So it's like you can control when it's actually going to pop. Now the thing is, you saw that this axe took a decent amount of damage when he had 5 stacks. So let's put a couple other stacks on him. Let's do 3. Let's put free spells on. So now let's end it here. You can see it did a decent amount of damage, but not nearly as much as 5. And let's do 2. Yeah, that was almost no damage. So basically, if you read the ability and you see what happens, that's because this ability increases basically exponentially with the amount of stacks. Now, it doesn't increase all the way up to infinity. It only increases up to 5 stacks, but you can actually put more stacks on them, but the damage doesn't just multiply from there. So basically, what you want to be doing is you want to try as best as possible, as hard as possible, to get 5 stacks, and then from there, everything is a bonus. Now, 4 stacks is obviously fine. If you can't get more, it still does a decent amount of damage, but really what you want to do is get 5 stacks. And then we can see you can actually apply 19 stacks to them or something, and then that's going to do an insane amount of damage. It was just 1 away from killing him, but still, that's kind of how you want to think about this ability is 5 stacks are the best. Anything above that is a bonus. Below that, you probably want to try to get that other stack in. Now, obviously, you are restricted by mana, and the cooldown is 2.5 seconds, so sometimes they'll run away, you won't get it, or whatever. The enemy's going to know what you're going to try to do, so when you use the Shadow Poison, they're probably going to try to run away if they have a couple stacks on them. It's kind of like Bat Rider in that way. So they're not going to be stupid, but that's why it's a little bit of a skill shot, doing it from trees, kind of predicting where they're going to go, where they're going to run, that kind of stuff. It can be a little bit complicated in that way. The other thing to mention about this spell is because it is something that you're kind of spamming low cooldown, you want to use this all in. You don't really want to just spam 2 Shadow Poisons and then, do nothing, run away or something like that, because it doesn't really do all that much initial damage, and then when you end it, it doesn't really do too much damage to them, so they don't really care. And what you really just did is gave them free stick charges, and that's kind of why this ability, even though it is a good harass ability, it's not like a casual harass ability. You want to use this when you're kind of going all in. So when you use 1 Shadow Poison, you want to try to use all of them, get to that 5 stacks. And that can be difficult sometimes, obviously, because, like I said, the enemy is going to know what you're going to try to do. But if you pair that with, let's say, a stun on the core you're laning with, or a slow or something else like that, it can be really effective. Or maybe even disruption, because you can obviously disrupt them, and then you can use stacks on them while they're in there. So when he pops out, he has 1 stack on him. So, let's just say you get a couple stacks and then they're running away. Well, then you can just disrupt them, use another stack, and then, go from there. Let's say then your carry follows up with a stun or something like that, or a slow, or whatever it is. That can be really, really good. That's how you want to be thinking about Shadow Poison, all in, not just casual harass. So that's Shadow Poison. Next we can go to his ultimate, which is Demonic Purge. And this is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Basically, you just press it on the enemy, and then they're giga slowed, and they're constantly being purged. And what that means is you can have no good buffs on you. So usually we think of buffs as debuffs. For the most part, there's a lot of debuffs in the game, but there are obviously, good buffs for yourself and for your teammates. And so this just makes it so none of those things can exist on you when you have that demonic purge on you. So what you're going to be doing with this ability is just pressing it on a target to isolate them, to slow them, to make sure they have no buffs on them. And then obviously you're going to be pressing disseminate as well. So that just amps up the damage, slows them, and just makes it really annoying for them. And that's why they have this mini Doom kind of effect. Yes, you can use abilities, do all that kind of stuff, but it still is extremely, extremely annoying. And this is really good against certain heroes. So I will quick spawn a Wind Ranger in here, an enemy, and we will show you. We'll just level her up a little bit, and we'll give her a Wind Run. And we will see that, obviously, when she clicks Wind Run, you can't hit her. But then when you purge her, it just immediately takes it off. And let's say we put free spells on, she can click it as much as she wants, but it doesn't matter. She will not have Wind Run on her. Now, you also saw at the end of Demonic Purge, she basically had burst damage, took a ton of damage, and this is the other good thing about this ability is it's kind of like Orchid in a way, where Orchid bursts them at the end when it runs out, but that's based on the amount of damage they take. This is just straight flat purge damage, which is really good just to like finish a hero off at the end to make sure you get them. You kill them at the end there. If they potentially run away, they escape, because the slow, if you noticed when I click it on the axe, if I didn't say it before, they actually get slowed less and less as it ends. So before the end of it, they can kind of get away. Maybe they BKB'd or did something else like that, and then they're running away and you don't have other stuns to lock them down, but they're, if they escape with only a 200 health, they're going to die at the end there with your Demonic Purge damage, so that can be very good for finishing off enemies as well. Plus you obviously might be using Shadow Poison on them too, so you can just get that extra burst damage in there at the end. So this hero does do significant damage, but it's not really by himself. You need other people to amp up the damage, to isolate heroes, all that kind of stuff. So that's Demonic Purge. And then we are going to talk about the Ags really quick, because the Ags gives you two instances of Demonic Purge, and then it also just allows a break to happen as well, which is really good. So on a hero like Axe, this ability is going to be great with Agnum Scepter, because it's just a break that you pretty much can't escape from. You're slowed. Now you have probably Disseminate on you. You have all these poison stacks, adding up. So it's great to just say, okay, this target I'm just eliminating from the game. Like I said, it's not as good as Doom, but it's like kind of just a Doom basically from the support position, and it's pretty good. Obviously lower cooldown as well. And then the other thing is the Shard. The Shard basically gives you a Demonic Purge, but it's a defensive Demonic Purge. It's Demonic Cleanse. And so this does the similar kind of thing, but for an ally. So if I place this on the axe, and then this axe tries to, debuff them, it just doesn't do anything. The debuff is immediately removed. So let's say there's a Veno or something on the team. You can just remove that debuff, all those debuffs instantly, which is great. So that poison's all gone. They're not slowed. It's very hard to deal with an ally, or if your ally's running in, the enemy has a very hard time dealing with them, because they really can only stun them. They can't slow them. They can't debuff them, which is great. Now, this is not like a hard debuff. It's not going to debuff everything. It's only going to do a basic dispel, it says right there. So there are abilities that aren't dispelled by anything other than, they're hard dispels only. And so those kinds of things you have to consider as well, or they're not dispellable. So you have to consider doesn't remove every single thing. It's not like a BKB. It's not like you're immune, that kind of stuff. So you just have to understand what that entails, but you can place that on yourself. You can place that on your ally. And then obviously if you do have an Ags, you get 2 charges of this as well. Like if I remove this Ags, I only have 1 charge of this. I get the Ags, I get 2 charges of each. So just keep that in mind. This is very good defensively if that's like the main thing you're going to be doing in the game is, disrupting people for saves, giving you another save here with Demonic Cleanse can be very, very good, especially if the enemy has like no stuns and it's all debuffs and slows and stuff like that. So that is Shadow Demon. Those are his abilities, and you can see how they're kind of complicated, but he is able to fill in all the gaps there depending on what your team needs. So that's his abilities. Now let's jump into a game and see how he's played. Now moving into the actual game, the laning stage for Shadow Demon is really all about the poison. So I kind of mentioned that before, the poison is your main harassing ability, and disruption is actually taken level 1 a lot, just because it's really good during the rune, it's really good for a save, or offensively, if there's an arrow on your team from Marauder or something else like that, to set up other stuns, to allow allies to get into range to do other abilities, use other abilities, do damage, that kind of stuff. It's also good for saving people as well, and things like that. It's good for like dewarding early, because if you're doing a right-click battle with a sentry with the enemy support, then you can use disruption level 1. But overall, once you get to level 2 and beyond, it's really all about the poison. And kind of like I talked about before, you want to go all in with the poison. When you use one poison, you want to be using a bunch of poisons. So that's how you really want to be thinking about that, because the enemy's going to know they're just going to run away. They're not going to want to get those 5 stacks, because they're going to take insane amounts of damage. So you need to kind of calculate that. When is the best time to use the poison? It's usually when the enemy is kind of at your tower, they're not really going to want to run away, or if they are going to run away, it's going to take a long time for them to get back into safety, back under their tower, or back out of vision, that kind of stuff. And so you need to be calculating when you use the poison, and you also just want to make sure you're not spamming it, because like I said before, they're going to get stick charges. And so this is one of those heroes like a Bat Rider or Bristleback where the enemy's always going to be buying stick if they're smart, so you don't just want to be giving them random stick charges all the time, because that will help counter your burst damage as well when they can just pop stick and get a quick heal in there because you've been spamming out your abilities. So that is the laning stage, and then after the laning stage, the main thing this hero wants to do is stay behind his cores and help gank or help farm by saving the ally if they are getting ganked. So that's really what you're going to be doing, because you don't really farm waves or jungle very fast. You don't push towers either, and you can defend towers to some extent, but for the most part, you're just going to follow those cores around, and your only job is when you have a hero that you want to gank, you use your offensive abilities, and if you're going to save your carry or your mid or whatever from farming a side lane in a dangerous spot, then you can use your disruption and potentially they can get out with their mobility spell, or they can turn, or whatever else. And so that's really what you're going to be wanting to focus on. And the only time you're not going to be around one of your cores is usually if you're going to D-ward or something like that. Then later in the game, you really have to evaluate what your team needs, because like I said, this hero can kind of fit in all of the gaps. So sometimes your team lacks vision and you need to use your poison to scalp, and that's one of the best things you can do for them. But this also leaves you a little bit vulnerable, because now the enemy knows you're like spamming out this poison. They can kind of tell where you are, and they can just jump in and pick you off, and that's really not good if that's not the main thing that your team needs, because maybe in some games your focus is going to be to sit back and press disruption on your carry or your mid or whoever the enemy initiates on. Maybe that's the main thing you're going to be doing. Or maybe your main goal is actually more offensive, to press demonic purge on the enemy, Wind Ranger or whoever that needs to be purged, or just be really offensive and amping up the damage and making sure that these heroes die or this one hero dies. And that's kind of the thing about Shadow Demon that's difficult, is to know which thing is the most important in that game based on the matchups, based on the situations, and that's how you really want to take advantage of the hero. But it's kind of like a skill tree, or like a tier list of which thing is going to be the most important, and then focusing on that first, and then taking advantage of the other things kind of down the ranking. And so it's not that you don't want to use your offensive abilities if you're going to be focusing on the save. It's not that you don't want to scout or use your poison. It's that you have a priority of the first thing you're going to be doing, the most important thing in that game, and then you're going to be going down from there and saying, okay, the first thing is the save, the next thing is the offensive abilities, and then the other things are like vision, canceling blinks, chasing people down, doing all those kinds of things, maybe doing the defensive purges, that kind of stuff. And so every game is going to be different, and that's how you're going to take this hero and kind of use it to its fullest potential by amping up what your team wants to do, by knowing in the individual games, in the matchups, in the situations, what is the best thing to do. And that can be difficult because that takes a lot of time to practice the hero, to learn the hero, and to learn all those different situations. But overall, since this is a beginner's guide to the hero, since you're going to not have all that experience, you're not going to have all that time on the hero, you can obviously watch replays of pros playing the hero to figure out what they do, but for the most part, you kind of need a basic guideline of what to do first. And so really, like I said, the number one, number two thing is just saving heroes and then pressing your offensive abilities on a single hero that really needs them. And that's really what you can think about, is like, okay, how is the team fight going to start? Who is going to initiate, and who do I need to save? Like if there is a Luna or something on your team and they're the main damage dealing hero, then you just need to sit behind the Luna, make sure that if they go on the Luna, you can save the Luna, and then you get those extra illusions too, which just help overall for dealing damage. And then you can say, okay, there's a Wind Ranger on the enemy team. I just need to press my ult on the Wind Ranger because she relies so much on the Wind Run. If I just take that out of the fight completely, she's not even really a hero anymore. Yeah, she has her ult, but whatever, we can chase her down, we can kill her, she's squishy, that's going to win the fight. And so that's what you need to think in every single game, using your save and then using your offensive abilities, and which hero you need to do that on and in what situation. Those are the first two things to focus on, and then you can kind of move out from there and doing the extra stuff that this hero can do to be annoying and to amp up damage and that kind of stuff. And that, everyone, is my Shadow Demon guide. So if you liked the video or found it helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.